Before we head back into court, I want to bring in our guest for this hour. Joining me to discuss, criminal defense attorney Silva. And Silva, great to see you as always. Thanks for joining me on the program. I want to start talking about this part of the case. What they're basically doing here is, that's the prosecution, is beginning to talk about the defendant's reaction to finding out the news about his husband's death. And I'm always skeptical of this. Now, don't get me wrong, we can learn things from this. Oftentimes we can't. I want to get your impression of this type of evidence in general. Do you think it's really strong evidence for juries, or just a piece of the puzzle that may or may not help?
Look, first of all, Michael, as always, thank you for having me. You know I adore you, and I'm just grateful to be on your program. And look, as a defense attorney, I'll be honest, I hate this testimony. Reactionary testimony is incredibly unreliable because everybody reacts differently when there's trauma or news of death. But ironically, jurors actually do use this testimony in their consideration for verdicts. And we know that when we poll juries and talk to them outside. What happens is they go, they just had no remorse. They weren't trembling or sad or crying. To the jury, reactions are incredibly important because of that common sense argument that if you are truly shocked of the death of a loved one, there are certain reactions that we expect. As defense attorneys, we always delineate. We always say, look, there are people who are stoic, naturally stoic, who don't emote, who don't cry, and you shouldn't use that against the defendant. And that is incumbent upon a closing argument where the defense attorney can be one-on-one with those jurors and say, look, don't judge my client because they were stoic. Judge the evidence because that's concrete.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's the exact word used by one of the witnesses, saying when he found out, he thought that the defendant was stoic. He showed a little emotion, but somewhat stoic. So it's an interesting word to use under those circumstances. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, it seems to me, now we found out from the landlord that it was really Tim's name on the lease. And just based on the relationship dynamics, it seemed that Tim was more in control. He had, I think, what was the more responsible position. Not to say that, being a handyman is not, he's not a craftsman, as you heard, talking about the fact that he was quite the craftsman, actually. The other guy ran this healthcare facility, but he seemed to be the lead in the relationship. Does that have any effect on how jurors may look at the case?
Absolutely. Remember, what is the prosecution, what are they hanging their hat on? They're hanging the hat on the fact that Smith was this wage earner that got a lot of money and that there was motive for him to be murdered because his partner would get everything, right? So he was this person who had the purse strings, who had the money, who had the accolades. He just seemed truly like a very smart, put together man. It does provide a motive. But at the same time, the defense can use that too and say, look, why would he kill the person who supplies him with so much financial security? It's not really a motive to say he'd inherit everything, where if he gets divorced, he'd get half of it, or at least benefit in a huge way from his partner. It also established the fact that Mr. Smith did have this different lifestyle, right, Michael, where, he had, it seemed, an open relationship. There was an apartment that was used for an open relationship and meetups, which again plays into the defense's argument, right, that this could have been one of his, less than notable lovers. So all of it plays together, and I think it does benefit both. It depends, again, how the prosecutor and the defense attorney spin this in closing argument.
Yeah, now remember, both of them lived that lifestyle. They were both using the apartment and at times even used it together, so they could work for or against both of them. All right, Silva, stand by. Want to head back inside the courtroom now. The jury is now seeing police body cam video of the defendant giving his account of what happened after Deputy Jason Hunt discovered Smith's body on March 25th, 2023.
I didn't give him Jack's phone number for the landlord because I have it in his Jack in Ocala with an L. So I thought it was Jack for landlord, and it's Jack of AA that we saw at our retreat. And I gave him that number, and he called me this morning and said, Herbie, I'm not Jack's landlord, so why are you calling me? And I'm like, oh my God, I said, so I've been scrolling through it. It took me 45 minutes to find his number, and I had to find it via text. I've got to call Kevin. Kevin's the only
When's the last time you saw him?
I went to bed on Thursday night, and I go to bed about 9:30. He finishes doing his medication. I would say about 11, I heard him get up. But that's not uncommon because he gets up and he'll go do Facebook posting for this stuff called Thrive, and he'll just relax and stuff. But I assumed he was still home, to be honest with you. I got up my regular time, 4:40. I went straight to the gym like I normally do, the Planet Fitness. I came home very quietly because if he's asleep, I try not to wake him because he doesn't have to be to work until 8 or 9. So I went in, took my shower. I left with my work trailer to go to work. I got back because I picked up all the materials, and before I went to the Villages, I figured I'd stop back by the house because I had forgot to get a change of clothes. So I stopped back by the house real quick. I went in. The bed was unmade. He wasn't in the house.
You're saying stop by the house, not here?
No, my house. This is just his massage office, our playroom and stuff like that, because that's what this was set up for, so that way we could host parties occasionally, because we have a 20-year-old daughter and he didn't want to do it at home.
Is this primarily his place? Is that why you didn't have a key?
This is not a primary residence.
No, I mean...
No,
his...
I have a key, but my daughter thinks he took it off the key ring at the beginning of the week because when he goes and plays, he wants the key, so that way he's not over here using it. So I have a key, but I think it's with his stuff here.
Okay.
Because when he goes and plays during the week, he takes the key.
Gotcha.
Because he doesn't want me interrupting. And his thing to me tells me I'm doing a massage. So I know what it means, and I let it go, and, you know. At least the daughter thinks he may have taken the key off the key ring. Otherwise, I lost them because they're supposed to be on a key ring like this. Yeah, it's supposed to be on this, and this piece is not in my key. So this whole assembly on my other truck key, this is gone with my two keys. So, but she doesn't know for sure. She just thinks he may have gotten it, or I may have lost it.
If there's 3 of them missing,
but took the whole assembly. And that would have been, like Tuesday. Because we don't use keys for the house. We have digital remotes for everything. And we have power gate openers and stuff. So I wouldn't even know where to look for my house key to find it. Somewhere in one of the drawers, I do know that. That's what we've done with them.
How often does he come over here, and does he stay the night?
No.
Never stays the night?
He never stays the night. Well, he's only stayed 2 nights that I know of. That's it.
How long?
2 nights were, one was a couple of weeks ago, and then one was right after we finished the place. He stayed 1 night that I know of.
So in the last month, he stayed 2 nights?
Yeah. I'd say in the last month, easily. But he never leaves, like, very many clothes here. He only leaves the...
What was he wearing last time you saw him?
A pair of blue jeans. I don't remember the shirt. I know it's an Affliction shirt, probably. It's either that or an American Eagle. I can't remember. And he usually wears either boots or Hey Dudes. And since it was in the evening, I knew he'd be getting ready for bed, so he'd be changing into something else. But then at that point, he would wear like fitness-type pants at night to sleep in, and just a T-shirt. But when he walks around the house and everything, anywhere he wants, he won't walk barefooted.
Do you know of anyone else that came over here?
I don't know who they are when he brings anybody over or anything like that. They're all on his either Adam for Adam account or his Grinder, Growler, stuff like that is what he uses. Same thing I have. I was over here last Saturday with somebody that I know, and he didn't want to play or anything, so Tim went and did a motorcycle ride. So I was over here last Saturday, and that's how when I knew I had my key, because I was over here last Saturday.
All right, before we take a break, we have this story for you. A former Florida nurse accused of raping her teenage stepson was sentenced today to 2 years in prison. The case stems from July 2024 allegations that Alexis Von Yates sexually assaulted her 15-year-old stepson while he was visiting his father. Last month, Alexis Von Yates pleaded no contest to the lesser charge of lewd and lascivious battery. She was initially charged with sexual battery on a person 12 to 18 years of age by a person in familial custody. Now, at her sentencing, the victim's mother called Von Yates an incestuous pedophile who violated her son.
People all over the world have seen your face, read your story, and are disgusted by you. There is nowhere you can go to escape the truth. And because of my son's courage, for the rest of your life, the world will see you for exactly who and what you are. An incestuous pedophile who will forever only be remembered for what she took from a child.
Now, after her 2 years behind bars, Von Yates will serve 2 years of community control and 10 years of sex offender probation. All right, we'll step aside now for that break. When we return, another investigator highlights what seemed out of place while processing the crime scene. More testimony in the dosed and choked murder trial of Herbert Swilley. Up next. Keep it here on CourtTV. Welcome back to CourtTV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. Back to Florida now for CourtTV's newest live trial, the dosed and choked murder trial for Herbert Swilley. The 57-year-old contractor is accused of killing his husband of nearly 8 years back in March of 2023. Prosecutors say that Swilley drugged and strangled Tim Smith in their home and then moved the body to an apartment that they owned where he staged a fake crime scene. Let's get back inside court now for more of the best testimony from today. Another investigator here talks about what Tim Smith was allegedly doing before he was killed and highlights what stood out while processing the crime scene.
What did he tell you about the purpose of that apartment that you guys were at?
The apartment was a recreational apartment for them. They would go there and host events and meet with people, those kind of things. It was supposed to be for fun.
What did he tell you about whether he, the defendant, or the victim used dating applications like Adam for Adam or Grindr to meet people?
He told me they both used those applications.
And did the defendant tell you whether both he and the victim used that apartment for sexual encounters?
Yes, they both used it for different things.
And how did he describe those sexual encounter meetings?
The sexual encounter meetings, it could be sex. He said there could be role-playing. There could be fantasies that go on, because in there was also like a massage table, a sling. They said that it was a place for them to have fun in.
Did you ask permission to eventually go to his and the victim's residence, their main residence, to document the medications the victim was taking?
Yes.
And did he give you permission?
Yes.
During this interview, did the defendant describe the victim's mood, like leading up to the time he was killed?
He said in the last 1 or 2 months that Tim had been kind of moody, kind of weird.
Did you talk with the defendant about his and the victim's sexual practices a bit more?
Yes, I did.
What did the defendant tell you about bondage?
I learned that this was something that the victim, Tim, would participate in. And that in the bondage events that Tim wanted to do, he would always be the one that was doing the bonding. He was the one that was in control. That Tim would be the one that would be tying up the other person, and that Tim did not like to be tied up, and that wasn't his thing that he liked.
So would that be, we know the victim's body, he had a ligature mark around his neck, right?
Yes.
Okay. Would that be inconsistent with knowing the victim's sexual practice habits of this being something sexually related that the victim wanted to be tied up?
Yes, that is inconsistent.
Did you specifically ask the defendant if there were any problems in his and Tim Smith's relationship?
Yes.
What do you say?
He said that they didn't have any problems, that there was no conflicts between them.
About how long was this interview?
It's about 43 minutes.
During the entire 43 minutes of the interview, did the defendant ever ask you how the victim died?
No.
Did he ever ask you to explain what was found or the condition of this body?
No.
Did you ask the defendant whether they used bleach or other similar smelling cleaning products?
He told me there should not be any bleach in that apartment.
Did he tell you why?
He told me that Tim, the victim in this case, would get headaches from it, so they didn't have it in there.
Where was the odor of bleach strongest in the apartment?
Where Tim's body was at.
Was a second phone located in the apartment?
Yes.
Where was that found?
It was in the toolbox in the room with the sling and the massage table.
Showing you photograph 8 from States 18. What does this show?
That is the toolbox that's next to the sling, and that's the top section where the phone was located.
Did you take possession of that phone as well?
Yes.
Showing USB marked as States Exhibit LL for identification. You recognize that item?
It has my ID and signature on
Okay,
it.
can you open it up, look inside?
Yes.
Tell me if you recognize it.
Yes.
What is that?
Appears to be the victim's phone that was collected from the top of the toolbox.
Is it in the same or substantially the same condition as when you collected it and packaged it that day?
Yes.
Did the defendant indicate that he was going to go leave? He was going to leave the scene and go get something to eat.
Yes.
Did you call him back and ask him to come back to the scene at some point?
Yes.
Why?
I wanted to do a walk through the apartment with just him to try to find anything that was out of place or of evidentiary value in there.
Did he in fact return to the scene?
Yes.
Did anyone come with him?
He was with his father.
When he arrived, did you in fact do a walkthrough of the scene and have him point out certain things that he indicated to you were out of place?
Yes.
And who went inside the apartment during this walkthrough?
It was me, Lieutenant Calhoun, which is the supervisor of the crime scene technicians, Herbert, and then there was a crime scene technician to take pictures. That was it.
Okay. Did the defendant's father go inside the house during this walkthrough?
No.
And why would you not have let that happen?
This is an active crime scene on a homicide case. I don't want anybody going in there. I let him go in there, let Herbert go in there, because he had shared the apartment anyways, and he's the best person to point out if something's out of place.
I'm assuming at this point Tim Smith's body had been removed.
Yes.
Okay. Generally, what happened during the walkthrough?
We went from room to room throughout the apartment, and he would point out different things in different rooms that he would tell me about or he would think was out of place. For example, when we went into the kitchen, he would point out that there was a bowl on the kitchen counter, and he said that when they entertain guests, when they have people over, that they would normally have some food, some chips or whatever it may be. We went into the bedroom where Tim was found. He pointed out that there was some towels missing. He pointed out some sexual lubricant that was supposed to be in another room that was in that room. He pointed out that there was some leather items that were supposed to be hung a certain way. They were not hung the correct way, and that there was some sex toys in the other room that he said appeared to be dirty, which would be unusual. Those things were supposed to be cleaned.
During this conversation you had with him, did he also back off his initial claim that he knocked on the apartment door when he showed up the day earlier?
Yes, I had talked to him, and I asked him about the banging on the door thing, and he came off that and backed off of it and said maybe he didn't bang on the door.
Yeah, Pender testifies that later that walkthrough made him a little suspicious. Coming up next, the defendant's former neighbor takes the stand. The best testimony of the day continues in the Dosed and Choke murder trial after this break. Keep it here on your front row seat to justice.
Tonight, on closing arguments, the suspect in the shooting of Charlie Kirk appears in court for the first time. We're live with the very latest as we break down today's hearing.
Closing arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on CourtTV.
Join me for a CourtTV true crime series.
I've never seen anything like this.
This was a whole different level.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands. Season premieres September 27.
Only on CourtTV.
We were in Florida this evening, watching the best of today's testimony in the dosed and choked murder trial of Herbert Swilley. Today, the jury heard from the defendant's former neighbor who was asked about surveillance cameras that he set up at his home.
When you installed and set up the system, did you label the various cameras in a specific way, like front yard, backyard, things like that?
Yes, sir.
Did the surveillance system keep an accurate timestamp?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you ever have any problems with the system when you lived there?
No, sir.
When you moved out of that house and Mr. Vasquez moved in, what did you do with the surveillance system?
It stayed in the residence.
Did you disconnect it somehow to move anything and reconnect it?
It was disconnected briefly when we took the TV stand out. Everything got reconnected and basically sat on the floor until Mr. Vasquez moved in.
When you reconnected it, did you make sure it was working properly?
Yes.
Let me direct your attention to April 3rd of 2023 in the early evening hours. Did you respond to that same address, your former house, for the purpose of recovering some surveillance footage from that DVR system?
Yes.
What happened when you arrived at Mr. Vasquez's house?
Made contact with Mr. Vasquez, explained to him what was going on and if the DVR can get reviewed so footage could be obtained. He agreed, signed the release form from the sheriff's office, recovered some video, provided it to the detectives, got a call the next day saying that the dates that I recovered were the wrong ones.
Okay.
So they asked me to go back out there and just obtain the whole DVR. Went back out there, spoke with Mr. Vasquez, who agreed, obtained the whole DVR, took it to Major Crimes, dropped it off with them. They had to do their thing. Okay. I think it was like a day or two later, they called me and told me I could take it back to them.
All right, let me back you up a little bit.
Yeah.
When you arrived there to collect the surveillance at Mr. Vasquez's house, did you notice the cameras on the outside of the house?
Yes.
Were they in the same position that you installed them?
They are.
How did you, when you first went there the first time, how did you access the DVR system?
Through login.
Through your old login and password?
Correct. Well, I had forgot the password, so I had to reset the password so I could get back in.
And I'm assuming since you installed it, you didn't need help accessing and maneuvering around the system,
No,
right?
Sir. No, sir.
You indicated you were given kind of a time period that the lead detective wanted pulled from this system, right?
Yes, sir.
And did you, when you went to collect the footage, did you do anything to independently make sure that the timestamp on the surveillance footage was in fact accurate?
Took a picture to show that the time that I was there to obtain it was matching with what my phone was showing and everything else.
Showing you must be marked as States Exhibit VV as in Victor. Do you recognize that image?
Yes.
What is that?
Picture of one of the cameras facing the backyard with the timestamp and the date that I was there to obtain the video.
Does that fairly accurately depict the image that you took of the surveillance system showing the timestamp?
Yes, sir.
This timestamp would move VV as in Victor into evidence as 46.
No objection. That objection 46 will be in evidence as number, excuse me, VV be evidence number 46.
Showing you States Exhibit 46 just introduced into evidence. What does this show? Explain what we're looking at.
That is the camera angle that faces, would be south. That's at the back corner of the property. That's the back patio of the residence, and that's Mr. Vasquez's trailer.
And we see a timestamp in the middle of the photo of 4/3/23 at 17:48, 21 seconds, right?
Yes, sir.
And we see a time at the top of this photograph. What does that time come from?
My cell phone.
Okay. Was the time on your cell phone the same time as the time in the timestamp of the surveillance footage?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that how you determined it was accurate?
Yes, sir.
Did you actually view the footage that you downloaded?
Just to grab the times, which was what I put onto a DVR for the detectives. But because I'd gotten the time confused because of the change of times after midnight, that was determined to be the wrong time frame.
Okay.
So that's when I had to go back out and get the DVR.
Okay. And when you reviewed the footage, the initial time that you went and collected the DVD or the footage, were the camera angles accurate as far as what you remember they were supposed to represent?
Yes, sir.
when you went to collect the footage.
All right, let's bring back in our guest with me to discuss, criminal defense attorney Silva Megadichian. And Silva, those cameras turn out to be very important to the state's case. And it goes back to the little story that he told. Now, eventually, the defendant tells another story. He goes and does an interview with police. But if you remember, when they showed the body cam video of him talking about what he's doing, he said clearly, I was at home all night, sleeping, got up around 4:30, went to the gym, etc. Well, what those videos are going to show is that his truck was, in fact, not there all night. So obviously he lied. And again, when you lie to police, when you decide to talk to the police, it can do nothing but cause you problems.
Oh, absolutely. And people have to realize, too, police document everything, you know, between the body cam, between the video, between surveillance cameras. You have to be absolutely sure that the truth is the truth of what you're saying, because they're going to find out. And I do think this is part of the biggest pieces of evidence that the jury is going to use. Video footage doesn't lie. It is a concrete description of what happens, you know, assuming again that the date and time of the video is accurate and that the jury believes it's accurate. And that's what I always tell my clients too, you know, rather than talk to police, don't talk to police, because everything you say is not only documented, but the smallest inconsistency is going to raise doubt in the jurors' minds about your story.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because if you notice on the tape, it was almost like this sort of offhand description, and we've seen it time and again. Killers cooperate with the police, and I think it's because they think if they don't cooperate, it makes them look more guilty than if they do and have some sort of story that they think it's going to work, but oftentimes it just comes back to bite them.
It's so true, Michael. I mean, if we could do actual social studies on why clients talk in the way they do, whether it's stress, anxiety, or do they believe they can outsmart the police and prove their alternate story, it never made sense to me or makes sense to me. Or do they convince themselves that the rendition of the story that they have is truthful? That's the other aspect. But again, that's why we have a jury system, to go through the common sense arguments as well as the actual evidence, the concrete evidence. But again, his words, his statements really at this point look really bad on him.
Yeah, and some things that he didn't say, Silva, look just as bad. I got about 30 seconds here. The officer testified that he never asked about how the victim died or what the condition of the body was. I found that to be very sort of, damning for the defendant.
It's so true, Michael. Look, the jurors are common human beings. It's common sense humans. There are certain things that you would want to know immediately. And that is, I think, a lot more important than emotion or emoting. It's the questions that anybody in that situation should ask. And it's huge that he just didn't care or to ask, because he knew what happened.
No question. Things that he said and things that he didn't say, both hurting the defendant. All right, Silva Megadichian, thank you so much for being with me tonight. Folks, stick